Why is Iranian oil smuggling in Balochistan treated like it's legal? Why doesn't Pakistan stop it? And why is even the United States silent? The answer will shock you. In Balochistan, one of the biggest provinces of Pakistan, the story of oil smuggling is not just about crime or profit. It is deeply connected to poverty and the struggle for survival. For decades, this region has suffered from unemployment, lack of infrastructure, and very limited opportunities for the youth. Many people live in small towns and villages where industries are absent. Education is weak and jobs are scarce. Families often have no option but to look across the border for ways to earn money, even if those ways are considered illegal. The border with Iran stretches for hundreds of kilometers, and across that border, fuel is cheaper. Men, women, and even children in some areas depend on bringing this oil into Pakistan and selling it at low prices to make a living. For them, it is not about smuggling for luxury. It is about feeding their families, sending their children to school, and surviving another day. When a father sees his children hungry, when a mother cannot afford medicine, the only choice that remains is to take risks. Government support in these regions has always been weak. Roads are broken, electricity is unreliable, and clean water is a dream for many. With no nearby factories or trade centers, people see oil smuggling as the fastest and easiest source of income. The trucks, motorcycles, and even donkeys carrying barrels of fuel have become a common sight along the dusty paths. It has become a parallel economy, one that survives because the formal economy has failed to reach these people. Now many ask, why does the government not stop it? The truth is complicated. On one hand, the government knows this is illegal, but on the other hand, it also knows that thousands of families depend on this trade. If it were stopped overnight, without giving people another source of livelihood, the result would be chaos, hunger, and possibly even violence. Local officials often turn a blind eye because they too understand the desperation. Some are even involved in the trade themselves, taking bribes to allow the smuggling routes to continue. Internationally, the United States and other powers also know about this practice, but their focus is not on the daily struggles of the Baloch people. For them, this issue is small compared to larger regional politics. Unless oil smuggling directly affects international markets or security concerns, they do not interfere. This silence further allows the trade to continue. Over time, oil smuggling has created both winners and losers. A few people have become wealthy, controlling networks of transport and supply, but the majority are still poor laborers, risking their lives every day, carrying heavy barrels across dangerous terrains. Accidents, explosions, and arrests are common, yet the people continue because poverty leaves no other road open. In this video, we are going to explore not just the act of oil smuggling, but the human story behind it. We will talk about poverty, the lack of jobs, and the failures of development in Balochistan. We will look at how governments, both local and foreign, choose silence instead of solutions. And most importantly, we will uncover the truth that oil smuggling is not just a crime. It is a symptom of much deeper problems that remain unresolved. By the end, you will see clearly why oil smuggling continues, why it feels legal in Balochistan, and why the people involved see it not as a choice, but as a necessity. You will know the whole truth in this video. If the United States stepped in to truly help the people of Balochistan, the story of oil smuggling could change forever. Right now, we see young men risking their lives to cross the harsh desert with barrels of fuel, not because they want to break the law, but because poverty leaves them with no other choice. Imagine instead a future where these same young men wake up each morning and head to proper jobs. In factories, in schools, in small businesses, in agriculture projects, jobs that bring dignity and stability to their families. The first step would be investment. If the U.S. partnered with Pakistan to build industries in Balochistan, thousands of people would no longer need to smuggle oil. Textile factories, small manufacturing plants, and processing units for local resources could provide employment to men and women alike. Instead of standing at the roadside with plastic barrels, they could be part of a formal economy, producing goods and earning wages that feed their families without fear of arrest or accidents. Education would be another powerful change. Right now, many children in Balochistan drop out of school early because their families cannot afford the costs, or because schools are too far away. With American assistance, scholarships, new schools and training centers could be built. Imagine a 10-year-old boy who once carried fuel on his shoulders, now sitting in a classroom, learning science, mathematics, and technology that same boy could grow up to be an engineer, a doctor, or even an entrepreneur who creates jobs for others. Healthcare is also a forgotten dream in many parts of the province. Families often travel hours to reach a hospital, and even then, the facilities are weak. If U.S. aid were directed toward building modern hospitals and clinics, lives could be saved every day. Mothers would no longer have to risk their lives during childbirth, and children could be vaccinated against preventable diseases. With healthy communities, the pressure to depend on smuggling would naturally decline. Another major transformation could come from infrastructure. The deserts and mountains of Balochistan are vast, but many areas remain cut off because of poor roads and lack of connectivity. If roads, railways, and ports were developed with international cooperation, trade could flourish. Instead of smuggling cheap fuel, people could legally export minerals, seafood, and other local resources, earning far more money than the dangerous smuggling routes ever provide. Now imagine renewable energy projects. Balochistan is full of sunshine and strong winds. With American technology and funding, solar farms and wind turbines could be installed across the province. Local people could be trained to manage and operate them. Instead of importing smuggled oil, villages could generate their own clean energy, selling electricity to the grid, and building a sustainable future. The ripple effects would be massive. When people have jobs, schools, hospitals, and electricity, crime naturally goes down. Smuggling networks would collapse because they would no longer be needed. Bribes and corruption would weaken. Instead of a shadow economy, Balochistan would have a legal economy that contributes to Pakistan's overall growth. And most importantly, people would gain hope. Poverty is not just about lack of money, it is about lack of hope. When a young man sees that no matter how hard he works, he will remain poor, he chooses risky paths like smuggling. But when he sees that education, effort, and honesty can build him a future, he walks the straight road. If the United States truly helped, not with weapons or political pressure, but with sincere development, it would not only change Balochistan, it would change the entire perception of America in the region. Instead of being seen as a distant power interfering in wars, it would be seen as a partner that lifted communities out of despair. The people would tell stories of how their lives changed, not because of smuggling, but because someone finally invested in their dreams. In this video, we imagine a different future, one where the United States and Pakistan work together to give jobs, education, healthcare, and energy to the forgotten land of Balochistan. A future where children do not risk their lives carrying barrels of fuel across borders, but instead hold books, tools, and skills that shape tomorrow. This is the truth we must face. Oil smuggling exists because poverty exists, and poverty can only end with real investment, real opportunities, and real care. If the U.S. helps out these people, the world would see not smugglers, but builders of a brighter tomorrow. When we talk about oil smuggling in Balochistan, many people ask, why doesn't China take interest in this matter? After all, China has invested billions of dollars in Pakistan through the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, building roads, ports, and power plants. But when it comes to the daily struggles of poor people depending on smuggled fuel, China remains silent. The first reason is simple. China looks at problems only through the lens of its own benefit. For Beijing, what matters is the safety of its projects like Gwadar Port, highways, and energy pipelines. As long as oil smuggling does not directly harm Chinese investments, it is not their concern. They are not here to solve Pakistan's poverty or unemployment. They are here to secure trade routes for their own goods. The second reason is that smuggling is seen as a local, low-level issue in the eyes of China. This is not a major threat compared to terrorism, separatism, or attacks on CPEC projects. Oil smuggling is more of a survival economy for poor people. And for Beijing, it does not interfere with their big plans. This is why they prefer to leave the matter in the hands of the Pakistani government. Another point is that China follows a very strict principle in its foreign policy: non-interference in internal affairs. Unlike the United States, which often involves itself in local politics, China avoids taking sides in such issues. They believe it is Pakistan's internal matter to deal with poverty, smuggling, and border control. Their focus is only on making sure their own projects are completed on time. Also, one cannot ignore that China has its own economic calculations. If oil smuggling provides cheap fuel to some parts of Balochistan and keeps local people somewhat satisfied, then Beijing might even see it as indirectly helpful. Why? Because unhappy, Jobless people could create more instability and resistance against Chinese projects. But if they have some small income through smuggling, at least their anger is not fully directed toward foreign investors finally. China is not interested in this matter because solving it would require long-term investment in people, building schools, hospitals, industries, and jobs. That is something Beijing is not willing to do unless it brings direct profit. For them, development is only about projects that serve Chinese trade, not about uplifting local communities. This is why oil smuggling, even though it looks illegal, is tolerated in silence. So the truth is clear. China does not care about oil smuggling in Balochistan because it does not hurt their business. They see it as a Pakistani problem, too small for their global ambitions. For the poor people, this means they remain invisible, not a priority for Beijing, not a priority for Islamabad, and not a priority for the world. Oil smuggling in Balochistan is a daily reality, but many people ask, why don't Asian banks step in with money to stop it? The truth is, banks are not charities. They only invest where they see stability, repayment, and long-term benefit. Smuggling is not just about fuel. It is tied to poverty, unemployment, and weak governance. For banks, that's too messy and too risky. Security is another reason. Balochistan faces insurgency and instability, and no bank wants to pour money into a region where projects could be attacked or fail. On top of that, smuggled oil comes from Iran, and any program targeting it could drag banks into the sensitive issue